From Central Texas, it's the Best of the Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Von Warnke, author, speaker, outdoor writer, videographer, TV show co-host, podcaster, and a few other things in the industry. I'm so excited that you took the opportunity to download our show or stream it wherever you are, however you found us. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We also want to thank you for leaving your positive reviews about the show on iTunes or Stitcher Radio or FM Player or wherever you found us. We would appreciate that tremendously, as that helps other people find the show and be able to plug into our content. And this show to you is free. So if you like what you hear, please, you can help us out by giving us a review. That would be awesome. So today is going to be a shorter podcast where we get into what to look for when purchasing a used bow. And I'm here in studio with this podcast with Prowler Bill Henson. Him and I are sitting down and doing a kind of one-on-one interview conversation, kind of like if you and I were at a coffee shop, you know, having just a conversation about, you know, what to look for when purchasing a compound used bow or a recurve used bow. And this can be universally true with buying a lot of things in the archery world. So I think you'll enjoy this podcast. I certainly enjoyed recording it with Bill. Here is our interview. Generally speaking, most people don't go out to buy a brand new $1,500 bow for their first bow, right?
Yeah, I didn't.
I didn't either. In fact, I'm still using a used bow. So, and I paid like $200 for mine with arrows and everything. You know, I lucked out. The guy was getting completely out of bow hunting and was going into rifle hunting full time, and just wanted to sell me everything.
Well, what do you check for when you go in to buy a used bow? Did you look at this one before you bought it?
Yes, absolutely. And so I think one of the most important things to look at is to be able to look at the bow in person, not to just buy it off of an eBay or a Craigslist or something like that without inspecting it in person before you commit to the purchase. Yeah. I think that's very important. And the same thing as if you were buying a gun, same thing as if you were buying, you know, anything else.
Well, if you're going to buy a used bow, I'm just asking you a question. What's the first thing that you look for?
I look at the limbs.
Yes, me too.
Make sure they're not warped. Make sure they're not cracked. Then I look at the string to make sure it's not frayed too badly. And make sure the cables aren't cracked or warped or are frayed too badly, and those are kind of the first initial things I look at.
The second thing I look at the limbs first. I look at the base of the limbs.
Okay.
The next thing I look at is the tips of the limbs. Then I look where the cams go in. I'm looking for any crack or worn spot. Is there a worn spot on a limb, like somebody's had it in a gun rack forever, driving around the road with it? Limbs and cables don't bother me because I'm probably going to change them out anyway.
Right.
And that's the first thing I would do if I buy a used bow, because you do not know what stress has been put on that bow.
Yes.
Generally speaking, you don't know unless you know the person that owns it. You don't know, has it been dropped? Has
it been dry fired?
Yes.
You know, anything like that.
I used to shoot on night of eagles, and I shot at a deer one time, and I was shooting out of a elevated stand. It was kind of like an elevated box stand, and it had a lip on it. And a night of eagle, whenever you cock it, the limbs actually cock themselves.
I own a screaming eagle.
I released it, the bottom limb hit the stand.
Ouch.
Well, the bow jumped, almost slapped out of the stand. I was able to actually catch it because I had a wrist wrap on it. But
oh, thank goodness.
Carried it to the shop that day. I got down out of the stand. I didn't hit the deer, but I got down out of the stand, carried it to the shop, and told him what happened. And he was an Oneida dealer. We looked and we looked and we looked and we looked, couldn't find anything wrong. Put a new string. The cable on it was fine. Put a new string on it and went back, shot it at the house. The second time I shot it, it exploded.
Oh, no.
All right. We went back and looked at it again because the cables and all just came apart. The limbs were still intact. They were still there.
But everything just blew up.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. What happened was the base of the limb, where the cable goes on an oneida, goes around that part.
Right.
Had a hairline crack in it. We didn't know it.
Couldn't see it very well.
Couldn't see it. So when I pulled back, it put all the stress in the world on the base of that limb, and when it did, it snapped it off.
Oh my goodness.
So if I buy a used bow, I've made some people very angry at me, but I'll carry my magnifying glass in there and look at it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll feel of it, I'll look at it, then I'll look at that magnifying glass and the two stress points, the base and the tips.
Right.
Where the cam is and where the base is. That's what I'm looking at. Then I'm going to inspect the riser. Is it straight?
Is it warped?
Yeah. Is it warped? I'm looking at all these things.
Yeah.
And I know that's, when I pull out the magnifying glass, they just start shaking their head. But,
oh, gosh.
Hey, I bought a bow and brought it home, a used bow, for my son, and I shot it, and the first time I shot it, string broke.
Oh, my.
After then, I never, ever buy a used bow that I have not gone over that with a fine-tooth comb.
So that's why the magnifying glass comes out, because
exactly.
You never know.
That string was probably cut, and I just could not see it.
Right.
And now I haven't bought a used bow in years, but I've gone with people that have, and I feel of the string.
See if there's any cuts, any weaknesses.
Phrase, thin spots, rough spots, smooth spots. And if they are, I say, we'll buy it, but we got to change out the string. And if it's at a pro shop, it's no big deal. But if you're buying it from an individual, the best thing to do is, if you got any questions at all, don't buy it.
Right.
There's too many good used bows out there. I've got one at the house I've had for probably 10 years. I still like shooting it. And I bought it used. But the guy needed some money. He said, I need $100. And it was a Bowtech LS, I think is what it was. Well, I know that's what it is. But I've shot that bow for 10 years. I still like shooting it.
Right.
I like shooting my PSE a little bit better, but I'm never going to get rid of it. I got $100 in it. Still a good bow. Got sights on it. Ready to go.
Yeah, that's good.
Something happens to my PSE, I got a backup because I know how it shoots.
That's good. Something that my local archery pro shop manager and owner suggested that when I bought my first bow was to not buy a bow, if at all possible, older than 5 years or so. You heard that before?
Yes.
Because why?
Well, for one thing, fatigue. How much has it been shot? That's fiber. Most limbs are fiberglass.
Right.
All right. Fiberglass, over a period of time of taking a beating, whenever you release that arrow, those limbs and cams release, and all the energy is in that string. But what you don't see is how hard those limbs flex and pop.
Right.
If you ever, I wished I'd had a high-speed camera because we was taking video of a bow that actually come apart while we was videoing.
Oh, my.
The bow was like, I don't know how old it was. I'd be lying if I told you, but it seemed to be pretty old. And but it looked to be in good shape, except for one spot. It was discolored. Just, you think, well, it's just in the manufacturing of it. But that one little discolored spot's what broke on the limb. And when that limb broke, it's just like everything just come apart at you. I mean, it cut me over the eye.
Oh, my.
And the string wrapped all up in me and hit me and everywhere else. And I was jumping out of the way. Looked like an idiot out there jumping around.
This is like used bow horror stories podcast.
Yeah. But I mean, that's it. You have got to check it out from stems. If you don't know, get the guy that owns the bow and y'all go into a pro shop and ask him to check it out.
Right.
That's the best advice I could give you if you're not a bow guru, and I hate to use that word because there is really no such thing, but unless you know what you're talking about, And
know
you
what you're
looking at.
Right, right.
You need to get someone else to go look at it. Preferably someone that shoots a lot. I mean, a lot. There's a lot of people out there that think that they're a bow hunter or a bow shooter, and they're halfway good. I know where I'm from, in the 70s, they thought, or 80s, I should say. In the 80s, they thought that, if I can hit a pie plate 30 yards, I can kill a deer.
Mm-hmm.
Man, if I can hit that pie plate, I'm good. And they're talking about a piece of, all it is a paper plate, and they stick it on a bale of hay, and they shoot at it.
What, 8 inches round, right?
Yeah, 8 to 10.
8 to 10 inches, and there you go.
Well, if I can hit that, I'm doing good. No. You need to draw a 1-inch dot in the middle of that and hit that 1-inch dot.
Accuracy is a little bit more defined than that for especially you and I.
Well, it should be for everyone.
Should be for everybody, but yeah, it's something we put a big importance on with what we do with Mac and Prowler and what we do in the writing and the podcasting and the video work that we do.
Well, I've made some horrible shots with a bow at targets. I've had a few uh-ohs hunting with a bow. One is the arrow was not set on the rest. That was an eye-opener because the arrow was flying way off, up, out, and away.
Bye, arrow.
Oh, yeah. We never found that arrow. Never even went and looked for it because they don't tell where it landed.
Right.
But, carry someone with you that knows the archery equipment. Another thing that bothers me is I saw a guy who bought a bow one time, and I went with him. And the guy who owned the bow he was going to buy it from had an overdraw on it. And he was shooting super short arrows, high poundage, like 75 pounds or something.
Ooh, wow.
And that's like dry firing a bow every time you shoot it.
Yeah, with an overdraw, shooting an arrow that short, yeah.
And he's talking about how fast it flew. Fast is good. Accuracy is more important.
I agree. Direction is always more important than speed.
Yep. And I shoot heavy stuff because I want a lot of kinetic energy. I want 60, 70, 80 pounds if I can get it out of a bow. And you can. If you're shooting fast enough, you're shooting a heavy enough arrow.
Right.
80 pounds, you can shoot anything in the world with an 80-pound.
Yeah, African game,
whatever.
Yeah. Absolutely. 80 foot-pounds of kinetic energy.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of juice.
The bow that I'm shooting now, I'm shooting about 62 pounds of kinetic energy.
Which is good for just about anything in North America, would you say?
I shoot a bear with it. Wouldn't bother me.
62, 65 pounds, feet-pounds of energy, yeah.
But I'm only shooting, 55, 57 pounds is actually what I'm shooting. But anyway, I talked to the guy, and I told him, I said, you don't need this bow with this overdraw on it, because every time he fires it, it's almost like dry firing. It's not dry firing, but it's getting close. So I convinced him that he didn't need to buy it. Well, the guy called him and came off with the bow $100. He bought it 2 or 3 days later, or what it was. And he brought it up there, and I told him, I said, well, first thing I would do if it was mine, I'd take that overdraw off and throw it away.
Get you some longer arrows.
Yeah, get some longer arrows, and you can start shooting it. And he said, well, you shoot it. And I said, nope, I ain't shooting it with that overdraw on there. He said, why not? I said, it's just a phobia I have. I cannot stand that broadhead or field point to be back behind my hand.
Right. And I'm kind of afraid of bows exploding.
Yeah.
Which is a normal fear.
Well, I've had 3 of them blow up on me.
Wow.
And that's not good.
I've only had it happen once, but yeah.
Today's bows, generally speaking, a new bow they're all good. You don't know what you're getting into when you buy a used bow. In your case, you did good because you inspected it good. You looked at it over and over.
I brought an expert with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of that pays off because there are a lot of good bows out there, used bows. Because here's what happens. Most of the time, this is what happens. I want to be a bow hunter. I want to learn to shoot a bow. Well, I go spend $600 to $1,000 to $1,500 on a bow. I shoot it for 1 year, and I put it down, never pick it up again. It's been sitting in the closet all this time, or in wherever they got it. Generally speaking, those bows are excellent bows.
Because they haven't been used that much.
Right.
It's kind of like buying a slightly used car.
Yep.
Because somebody else took the whipping on the it's only new for the first day.
Yeah, I just bought a brand new vehicle. It's a Ford or something, other Transit or something like that. It's a little bitty box type deal. I like the little old thing for running around town and delivering stuff. But other than that, it's okay. I think we looked at it a while ago out there. It had just turned over 3,000 miles on the way down here.
Right.
Got 3,022 miles on it. Well, now it is a used vehicle.
Right.
And they cost I think these cost about $29,000. Well, you couldn't give the thing away for $20,000 now. Ain't a person out there would buy it for $20,000.
It's only new for one day, as the old saying goes. Yeah.
Yep.
So there are a lot of bargains out there.
That's what I was fixing to get into. There are bargains out there to be had if you do your homework, if you inspect that bow, and if you got any question about the string, change it out. Any question about the cables, change it out. You're not talking a bunch of money.
No.
What? $75 at the most,
yes.
if cables and strings and everything else that goes with it.
Right.
I also look at something that a lot of people don't look at. If I'm going to buy a used bow, do they have puffs on their string? If they have puffs on their string, it cuts down on the vibration. The string will last 100 times longer.
And that's like the little spider lily looking things?
Well, yeah. That does the same thing. Puffs are actually threads.
Okay.
And when you put it in there, it looks just like a long, slender piece of material.
Okay.
And you shoot it about twice, and it's just a ball of fur sitting there.
Okay. I know what you're talking about.
Do the same thing with the little spider legs. What it's doing is cutting down on vibration. That extends your bow life.
And your string life.
And string life. And cable. Does it have a damper on it? A damper is a little rod that comes out that actually holds your cables in place, or your string. Some dampers actually have a stop on it. Your string goes in and hits your damper, and that helps cut down on the vibration, makes it quieter. And I also look at where, if they use a release, I look at the string right there, the serving on it. Is it indented? Is it wore out? Or does it look almost new? If it looks almost new, it hadn't got a big indentation in it, they haven't shot it that much. Probably a good bow.
Probably a very good bow, yeah.
But my hand is going to go over those limbs everywhere on it, then it's going to go over the riser. I also check for wear on the arrow rest. Okay. Well, this arrow rest is worn out. Well, it's been shot a lot. If it's not worn out in good shape, or it may even be a new one. They may have taken the old one off, putting a new one on. But that's some of the things you need to ask. Is this a new arrow rest? How long has it been on there? Has it been on there since you owned the bow? Stabilizer. Does it have a good stabilizer on it? A good stabilizer is nothing more than a damper. What it does is when you hold your bow up, it helps keep it stable.
Balanced.
It is balanced at that point. Okay, how long is it? Is a hunting bow? Does it have a damper inside of it that kills the vibration?
Yes.
That also extends your bow life.
Right.
So that's another thing that you want to look at. Look at your cams on both ends of the bow, where the cable goes around it. Get someone to draw the bow and look in there and see if there's any wear inside the cam where the actual cable goes.
Oh, that's good. Which you can only see at full draw.
Yeah,
that's really good advice.
And I know that it's over. I go overkill on this, but if I'm buying a used bow, I want to make sure that I'm getting a good bow.
It's kind of like buying a used car. I mean, in a lot of ways, it really is.
Before I bought this little car, they told me, said, take it home.
Test drive it.
Yeah. They said, test drive it. I said, look, I got to go out of town. I'll be gone for 3 or 4 days. I said, drive it. I said, I'm going to put a lot of miles on it. I'm going to down to Shreveport, and I'm going to catch a plane. I'm going to go to Florida. And they said, well, drive it. That's fine. That's what we got it for. We want you to like it. You like it, you're going to tell everybody else about it.
Right.
So that's what I did. I probably put 500 miles on that car before I brought it back. And I brought it back and said, where do we sign?
Yep.
Same thing with a bow. You need to shoot it. You need to shoot it with someone that can hear better than me. They need to be listening for squeaks. Is the cam dry?
Mm-hmm.
Is the bow limb creaking when you pull it back, which is a very good sign that it's a bad limb.
Interesting.
You need to pinpoint where the sound is coming from, if there is a sound. If there's no sound, you're in good shape, generally speaking. That's some of the things you have to look for.
And see, the sound of the bow creaking and that kind of stuff, as far as the limbs go, that's something,
a no-no.
That's something I never really looked at before, thought of before. So, that's brilliant that you brought that up. That's very smart.
Well, when I buy a used bow, I usually take my wife because she can hear an ant crawling across a granite rock. I know I say that all the time, but she got the best hearing. I can walk through the house barefooted at night with no lights on, and she'll say, where are you going? She'd be 3 rooms down from me. I go, good gracious alive, I wish I could hear like that.
Right.
She'll say, somebody just drove up. We're in the back of the house, back corner of the house now, very back corner of the house, and they're driving up out here in the driveway 300 feet away. Well, not 300, about 100 feet, really. But, that's a good set of ears. You want somebody that can hear. If you can hear, that's fine.
Right. But you want to be looking out for those kind of warning signs. And my only, other beef with motivated sellers, because I've dealt with this in purchasing archery equipment before, is, you get some people that are just like, hey, I just need the money for this. Just, if they're a motivated seller, they're going to sell it to you cheap. Don't get pressured into anything.
Right.
Don't get pressured into just buy this because I need the money for it. You buy for your reasons, not theirs.
Yeah.
So I think that's also important to mention.
Well, like I say, if you know the bow, you know the person, you know the right questions to ask, you know what to look for, you can come up with an excellent, good used bow, and it'll last you for years to come.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know how many shots it takes to wear out a bow, but I've never worn one out. But I change the cams and the string once a year, but I shoot more than most people do.
Right.
Now I'm shooting a PSE. Mac's he's got a bow shop, and I found a PSE in there I really did like, and I said, how much for the bow? He told me. I said, okay, rig it up. Let's go. And,
cool.
It was a little bit long, so we shortened the draw on it, and everything worked out fine. I'm still shooting it, and this is my 3rd year with the bow. So
wow, that's great. And I've been using the same compound bow for, I guess it's been about 7 or 8 years that I've been into archery pretty heavily. And that's the one I bought used. So I'm looking at buying a new one now. But, don't, if it ain't broke, the rest of that.
That's right. I mean, shoot, one of the things that Mac and I say on Mac and Prowler, we tell everybody.
Use what you have, right?
Use what you got.
I didn't want to take the words away from you, but I at least wanted to say I remembered that.
Well, it's a fact. I mean, people want to buy. I had a guy the other day, oh man, that's a perfect predator gun. Well, okay, it's perfect, all right, if you're going to shoot them in about 50 or 60 yards, 70 yards, but don't go out past that because you're not going to be able to hit them.
Right.
And it probably won't do the damage that you need for it to do. I mean, it's I forgot what caliber it was, a 17 something or other.
HMR or something like that.
Yeah, it wasn't an HMR, it's something else. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what the thing was. I'd never heard of it. But anyway, it's a little old bitty center fire bullet. And, you can kill them with it. Kill anything that walks with it if you shoot them in the right place.
Right.
But, what are you going to use the bow for?
Right. That's another good question. It's another good consideration.
If you're not going to use it for hunting, why buy a hunting bow? If you're going to use it for hunting, why buy a target bow?
Right.
I mean, I've got both, but a target bow is usually loud colored. Mine is red, crimson red, and got a stabilizer on it that's 4 foot long.
Yeah, as long as your arm.
Yeah.
Right.
And that don't work for hunting. Not for me.
And even what style of target shooting? Are you shooting indoor? Are you shooting 3D? Are you shooting outdoor, field archery? There's different bows for that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, that really should have been the first thing we mentioned. But,
right. It's in here at least.
Yeah. I know some guys that do trick shooting with bows, and they're really good. And I know one guy, he can outshoot anybody I've ever seen. He's beat the thing with a bow I have ever seen. Has never killed a deer, and deer hunts every year with it.
Wow.
He gets buck fever so bad he can't even pull his bow back. But like he said, when it quits getting exciting for me, I'm gonna quit hunting.
He just gets out there for the adrenaline rush, right?
Yeah, I guess he gets a pretty good one because he's never killed one. He's had several. He shot and missed several, and had some he couldn't even pull a bow back on. But anyway,
great.
That's the kind of things that you want to look for if you're going to buy a used bow.
That's good,
especially in the compound series. Let's touch on recurve real quick.
Sure.
Same thing. Look at the limbs. Is the bow strung up when you got it? If it's not strung up, unstring it. I mean, if it is strung up, unstring it. Look at the limbs. Are they warped? If they are warped, push them back in the right direction. Do they go there and do they stay?
Yeah.
If the limb is crooked on a recurve bow and you twist it back straight and it stays, that bow is okay.
But if it doesn't, you do not want that bow. And that recurve I showed you earlier today that I have does have a crooked limb on it, or does have a warped limb on it. And what you have to do is set it to where it's not directly center of as the string goes down with the two notches at the top at the end of the limb. You've got to set it off kilter for it to go.
You're starting to talk technical stuff now.
Sorry.
but still that is a good point because
right.
I've got a bow at the house and it's a recurve, but it's old. It is real old. It's an old bear bow, and the limb on it is warped, and it will not straighten up. But I know how to put the string on that pulls it back straight.
That's where I was going with that.
And when I draw the bow, and I've got it on video, when I draw the bow, the limb stays straight.
That's good to know. And
when I shoot it, it goes back to crooked. I have to straighten it back up again.
Every shot?
Every shot.
Yeah.
And I'd never shoot the bow. It'll stay with me as long as I live. But it's the first deer I ever killed was with that bow. And it's kind of got a sentimental value to it, so I'm going to keep it.
Right.
I'll probably never, ever shoot it again at an animal. Recurve bows, I shoot Bob Lee archery.
Mm-hmm.
They are, in my opinion, they are the best. There's a lot of good bows out there, like, all of the bow companies now that make bows, whether they're compound or recurve, whatever, they're generally going to be good bows.
Well, and I've said it before on this on all of my work that there's no real Saturday night specials in the bow and the archery industry really, as far as companies you should avoid. I'd avoid anything that's really foreign made, that's cheap Chinese junk or anything like that. But the main brands that you find in the United States are all good for the most part. That's one thing that I've learned over the years.
I had a friend that went to Walmart and bought a bow the other day. It's been probably 6 months ago. He wanted to start bow hunting this year. He went to Walmart and bought a bow.
Wow.
Guess what? It's a good bow.
It's a good bow, yeah.
I don't know who makes it. Ain't got a clue. Ain't got a name on it.
It's just a compound hunting bow.
But it shoots. Now, I can tell the difference when I draw it.
Right.
It doesn't draw
it's
and
smooth.
have that feel of smoothness and power
right.
that my bows do. But it shoots good. It only goes to like 60 pounds, but hey, you can shoot anything in on this continent with a 60-pound bow.
Right.
I've got a 50-pound recurve Bob Lee bow, and custom made. Got my name on it and all this. Thanks, Bob Lee. It's a treasure to me.
Sure.
I love shooting that thing when I'm bow fishing. It is oh man, it's just sweet.
Cool.
But it's so pretty, you don't want to carry it out on in bow fishing because you get fish slime all over it sometimes, or you drop it or something. So
naturally,
I asked Rob, who is Bob's son. I said, "Would you make me another riser that I can put a reel on it, a little rod and a seat for a reel, so that I don't have to use this wrap-up thing that I had taped on there.
A spindle or whatever they call those. Yeah.
And he made me one, and I still love it to this day. I shoot PSE compound bow for when I'm going bow fishing. But the one that I really like to shoot is the Bob Lee bow. It's just a sweet bow, and I've taken an elk and 4 or 5 deer with it, and I just really do like it. It's smooth, it's powerful. I shoot it totally different than I do a compound. Rob has shown me several tips about shooting that bow and about the limbs. That's how I learned about wart limbs, how to fix it, and all that kind of stuff. And told me you either need to take this bow or not take the bow, and why. And that's pretty good when you go to the guy who actually makes bows and you get tips like that.
Right.
That's where my tips come from. I'll be honest with you. Somebody like Rob or Bob Lee or some of those professionals that actually build and make the bows.
That's good.
But that's my tip for today.
All right. Thank you so much for your time today. I just really love sitting down with somebody in studio. It just brings more of a connection to, I think, you in the audience as well as me in the studio to be able to do the podcast and connect with somebody kind of on a more close level, if you will. And that was the way I felt with my experience with Prowler Bill. Him and I think so much alike. It's scary. I know that we're in 2 different generations and there's a big gap between our ages, but him and I, can read each other's minds almost. We think alike. So it is really good to get some time with him, to come down here to Central Texas and to talk about subjects like this. We have one more in this series about the legacy we leave behind. I will do that on the next show. And I'm really excited that you took the opportunity to join us, and thank you again for tuning in. If you'd like to, please rate our podcast on whatever media you found us on, whether that be iTunes, Stitcher, FM Player. There's just a ton of different things that we're out there broadcasting on, so we would really appreciate if you would leave us a positive review, as that would help other people find us, and that is kind of how we like to spread this show organically. So you can learn more about me or watch my videos. I've got a new video I'm getting ready to post about the time I'm releasing this podcast about a doe hunt that I took last weekend. And that was a fun video, and I just finished editing that. And I also have some other content, some new articles that I've written at my website at dustinsprojects.com. And then you can also check out Mac and Prowler and everything that we do at macandprowler.com. That's macandprowler.com. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for reading. And thanks again. Have an awesome day in the outdoors.